Friends, family, and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog. And as always, I'll date stamp this. It's year 4, blog 46, I believe. I think that's true. Yes, it is. And it's blog 202 in Legacy. And it's the 4th of January, 2026. And what's my thoughts at the moment? I suppose going back to work tomorrow is on my mind. I've got to get. I remember always going back to work after the new year. It was always remembering to use 2026 now instead of the old year. And back in the day when I was working for the banks and I just started sort of like earning money, checks were a thing, and I was forever writing the wrong year, at the end of things. So that's less so now. But yeah, it's a bit weird. It's almost like when the Queen died and it turned, into the King. You got to remember to know that it's a him, not a her, and it's God save the King, not the Queen, and all of that. It's all that what you've been doing for a whole year and changing how things are. So yeah, that's on my mind. Plus what the new year is going to bring in, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on, because it's already started really a little bit on a downer. Not for anything that's going on in my family, but it wasn't the nicest of day, the 2nd of January. But that those are things that you contend with. Now, we'll as I stated, we always did the news, and as I stated, I don't think it's worth reporting on the war anymore. My opinion, it will never change. I want the war to end, and I want it to be fair. And I don't want it to be, well, we've took over these territories, so they're ours now as an end and all of that sort of stuff. There will be concessions, but as far as I'm concerned, it needs to be ended. And my feelings over the last 3 to 4 years has always been the losses that this war has caused, and the mentality of how it all started, just ridiculous, to be quite honest. But we'll do the news. And this is mostly UK and probably a little bit of world. But the first one that came to mind was, I think this came out on Monday, I think. Anthony Joshua, he's a boxer, by the way, in England, was in a car crash that killed 2 of his friends, which were also part of his training group, and he was taken to hospital injured, but the thoughts are with the family of the 2 that were killed. The driver now has been charged over the incident. It was to do with a quite dangerous road where there was an overtake of a truck, and there was a stationary vehicle in the way, and they hit it very hard. The images that I saw on the news of Anthony Joshua being pulled out of the car were horrific. He was taken to hospital, as I stated, so hope everything's okay there. The news has all now been reporting on the aftermath, really. So what other news have we got? Well, last night in the darts, which my mum loves the darts, and I watch it with her, Luke Littler won the world championship for the 2nd time. So that's back-to-back wins, which has only been done by 4 others in the history of the tournament. So well done to him. It was a 7-1 score. It sounds horrific when you hear those, but you got to remember that it's just like tennis, where you win sets by a certain amount of games that are played. There are legs in darts. There are 3 to win a set, so you play 3 individual games and then you win a set. So 3 times 7, really. But if you think about it, if the other person wins a couple of legs, then it's a long game. Now, I think his name's Van Leal. He's a Norwegian player. He's the European champion that only won about a month ago. Has really started to garner interest. So, to be quite honest, it sounds like a drumming, but it wasn't. But he didn't give him a game, really. I mean, he admitted himself at the end. It was very nice to watch. Loads and loads of what they call high scores, 180, that's 3 darts in the treble 20, and then some really high checkouts, the highest checkout being 170. So that's 2 treble 20s and a bull. And it's called the big fish when you do that. There was a number of those through the whole of the tournament, but I think there was over 1,000 180s in the whole of the tournament. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, I don't know how many times I hit the treble 20, but every time I did it, I went, "Way, I got a treble 20," and these are getting them like every throw nearly. So, yeah, so that was interesting as a memory thing as well, because I started thinking about Jockey Wilson, some of the older players, and my mother sort of remembers some of them, but not all. So it's a bit of a downside when you start talking about things. Other news, the Met Office. The Met Office has issued a yellow warning in major areas of the UK for snow and ice, which is going to continue into at least mid to end of the week. And I must admit, the last 4 or 5 days been absolutely shocking. Really, really cold. It's worried me a little bit on the Friday, which was the 2nd of January, because I had to travel in my car, and I worried a little bit about my mum because we were outside of the place that we went to, and the wind chill. Oh, I mean, as much as people talk about what the cold is, it's the wind chill that really gets you. And we did our very best, and that's and that that includes my sister and everything. We did absolutely everything to help my mum with this, as you'd expect, to be quite honest. So that was there. Other news, it's a major one. There was a fire at a major Swiss resort. It was all in the headlines. It started New Year's Eve. What a great start. Not is what I'm trying to say there. And investigations continue into how many victims there are, identifying the victims, and how it started. Now, I think they uncovered that it might have been some sort of like sparkler or flame, in bottles that were too high up in the area that the fire started with. I think it was a major sort of like room that people were buying their drinks and things for. It spread very, very quickly, killed, many. I mean, what can you say? New Year's Eve, and it's one of those things where you'd think we'd be able to combat things like this much quicker. I mean, sparklers or candles in bottles or whatever it was. We've said, sparklers are hot. You put them near cloth or anything like that, and that's it. You're in trouble. You learn it at a very early age. As a child, for me, we held sparklers in our hands and span them around. So yeah, it's a horrible thing. So that's not great. And moving on, the last little story that I've got here is the energy price rise. Yeah, so just like anything on the 1st of January, things go up. So the energy price rise, that took effect on the 1st of January, and it's raising millions of households in the UK. Their energy charges are going to go up to approximately £1,758 a year. Now, it isn't approximate because some people are on fixed, some people are on variable, all sorts of stuff. And what a figure. And these are things that I feel for pensioners the most. The working, yeah, but we tend to be able to control ourselves a little bit. There are things that are always going to be out of our control, and there are things that we have to do, like be able to get to work in our cars, care for our family, all of those sort of things. And we can adjust things like buy a couple of less luxury items in our food, that sort of stuff. But the gap is just shortening so much to the point where you're not taking luxury items away, you're taking away essentials. And it's just a major thing and a player in my life, and so many in Britain and across the world. So this is why when I listen to politics and politicians talking, I just think to myself, you're in cloud cuckoo land. I don't think you're on planet Earth at all. It's almost like you've grown up with not a silver. Well, I don't want to say a silver spoon, but many of them probably are. You now don't worry about that yourself, and you say you do about the people that are in hardship, but I don't see it. It doesn't come across with any compassion. So yeah, that's the news. Got that out the way. And this week, because I've not been at work, there's not much to report. Mostly it's been about my mum. We've had some news that the GP will be coming out to inject steroids into my mother's knees, and I think that happens tomorrow. And of course there is a scan for my mother in regards to her heart, because the tablets we give her raise certain conditions in your body, and there is a heart scale. My sister is magic on all of this. She told me that it's only risen slightly, but it's risen to a point where you're on the low threshold, and therefore it invokes a scan. And I'm constantly thinking, and listening to my mum's breathing, trying to steady her with her memory by bringing up memory thoughts. We were traveling back on Friday, and we were going through the center of the town I live in, and I said, "Oh, do you remember this? You didn't used to be here, Mum, and do you remember this is where we used to get the car washed at? And do you remember we went up this road to go and visit Grandad?" And all of those sort of things. Most of the time my mum's quiet, but I think she took a bit in. I am one of these people that I suppose I fall into that trap of hating silence. I live so much in silence. In this room, there's no one, is there? I usually have something on the telly in the background. You might have seen in the early days of me being on Mainmeister and that the telly used to be on. It is one of those types of things. So that's really all to report on my mum. We're getting her up a little bit faster. Going to bed is a little bit longer. But I try to keep it constant. But the one thing that can happen is, and this happens all the time, and it happens for anybody that's a carer, is you will say something to your mum. "I'm only going away for a minute. I'm just going to get you a cup of tea. Stay there. Don't do anything. I'll be back in a moment." And when you come back, the scare is the person, in this case, my mother will have pushed a table away that she reads her paper on and start to get up. And you walk in with a cup of tea, and there she is. And you're going, "Mum, what are you doing? What are you doing?" Because you worry that she might fall. You see what I mean? And she'll say something like, "Well, I'll go to the toilet." And say, "Well, no, I bring the toilet to you." You've got, think about this, Mum, as you've got 24/7 waitress service. You don't need to do anything. You want me to scratch your nose? You just call me. You press a panic button. Whatever it is, get me here. And this is the horribleness of dementia. She still remembers our names. She still remembers bits and bobs of what happened yesterday and today, but it's getting harder and harder. And it is a major stress. I don't consider that to be the top stress I've got. There are other stresses that are taking effect, and those ones are very difficult for me to control, and they affect your mind, especially if you've got no one to talk or vent to. It's why I turned around and said that I like what I'm doing here in talking to a camera, if you see what I mean, because it's sort of like therapy in a way. So really that's all there is to talk about that. And then there is my week. There's nothing much to report other than I'm a big techie. Most people will know that. And I've lived with, I used to build PCs, right? And I used to build my own, and I used to change it every 2 to 3 years. And the last PC I built was 2012. Yeah, you can actually see it on the floor down there. It's that white with a black top there. And it's been dying. There was a major sort of like incident in this room where the power went off. And I've got, resistant plugs, that protect your devices. But it must have done something, because what was happening was, and it's reported in previous blogs, that it would take sometimes 5 minutes for my machine to boot up. And when it booted up, the processes on the drive were at 100%, right? Even though, it was booted up. I know the boot sequence, and I know that when Windows comes up and the symbol comes up and the little spinny dial comes on, that's the boot sequence. But there is a secondary boot sequence, which is Windows, where Windows takes control. And that's where the screen blanks out and you've just got a circle going around. Anybody that's got a Windows PC will know what I'm talking about. And that there, you saw my keyboard light up and then turn off and then light up. And then the screen would come to the login screen, etc., etc. And that bit could be 3 minutes of the boot sequence. And you look into that and you find out that that's when the kernel, that's the main core of the Windows, takes over, and it loads drivers and all of that sort of stuff. And once you're into Windows, background tasks are very high. I'm going to bring this startup, which could be your side gadgets. It could be your keyboard controller, your mouse control panel, your graphic control panel for definite. Your virus starts scanning if it's Defender, if you haven't configured that correctly, and all of that sort of stuff. So doing the blog, you'll notice that sometimes I had to do it twice, and that was because my machine would shut down, or it didn't record properly, or whatever. And with caring, you don't have the money. I mean, take it like this. I've been in this room now since 2005. That means the bed that I've got in here is the same bed that I had back in Manchester, and it's 26 years old. And the mattress is from upstairs, because my old mattress was dead. And those mattresses, although never used, were perished. They're the old type spring system. But I had to use them because I didn't have money to buy a bed. This bed has got screws in the sides to keep the frame there. And then there is the bathroom, which is just back there, which is perfectly adequate, but the hot tap doesn't work. So I have to go into the kitchen to get hot water to wash and all that sort of stuff. The shower's broken. So, I have to have all over washes and all of that sort of stuff on occasion. I've gone upstairs to the bath, but the reason I don't use the bath upstairs that much is because it's a deep bath. and I've got sciatica in my back, and I've got arthritis of the knee, and it's very difficult for me to get up and out of. And it's one of those things where cleanliness is still under control. It doesn't stop me from doing anything, but it's a hassle. I used to be able to just walk in, have a shower, come out. There you are, done. Right? The process now is 20 or 25 minutes of my morning and evening just to go to bed. And then, of course, this room is a single brick room, and it was built with a bay window that's not double glazed. So it's single pane glass, a radiator at the back of the room. All the electrical things are at the bottom of the room. And it's bloody cold, and my hands are white. And typing can get tricky. And the heater that used to be in here is now used in my mum's bedroom, because we need the heater in the front room to keep her warm during the day. And it's these sort of things, and these little heaters, they're done by wattage, and they just raise your electricity bill. So to keep the bills down, I don't know whether anybody else in my family understand this. I don't have a heater in this room for two reasons. One, I haven't got one. And two, if I did, it would raise the electricity level even more. Another reason for not having the telly on when I'm doing this is that would use more energy. The telly is turned off down there. Everything is sometimes isolated, so there's not even a standby light on. It's like that. And I think of these things. I don't think of them as legacy, so that when the inevitable occurs, the family get their fair share. I look at it because I need to protect my mother, and I need to also think about myself. My sister was great. She turned around and said to me, "Have you tried Thermalite gloves? They're very, very thin gloves that allow you to type. They're almost like rubber gloves that you wear when you're caring or in a hospital. And they've got a Thermalite type thing in them that keep heat in." And certainly I'm going to look into that. I do an awful lot of research myself, but the time now is very difficult. So going back to what I was saying, the PC needed to be built, and the thing that kicked it off was the RAM prices. You must have heard me talking about RAM for technology. And to be quite honest, it's quadrupled. It's times 4, and what used to be 100 and something is now 300 to 400 and something pounds. And it is therefore the most expensive thing that you're going to be buying for your PC. And this is all down to, they're talking that it's all down. I don't know quite if it's all down to that, but data centers and AI. Now, data centers need high band memory. So there's two types of RAM. There is what we buy, DDR5, but in our graphic cards, we have DDR5, but it's what they call HBM, high band memory. It's minuscule memory, very high rate, and its tracks to the processor are significantly shorter and more cycles, more micro, do they call them micro transactions? They are. It's a cycle. It's how many, like 7,200 transactions a millisecond or whatever it is. And it could be 6,000 and and so forth and so forth. They need that high RAM, and one particular memory provider has basically foregone the public market. So they're now not developing memory or supplying memory anymore to the masses, and they're giving it all to the data centers because it's profitable. You understand it from a business point of view, but there are only like 3-4 high memory manufacturers. Samsung is one, I believe, and what it basically means is how many, and you'd have to count this up yourself, how many devices in your house have memory, like your phones do, you know, your mobile phones, your PC does, your laptop does, your tablet does, all of these things. So all of these devices are going to go up in price, you know, and I'm talking about things like maybe, and I haven't looked into this, I think Fire Sticks, those sticks that you stick in the back of your telly for you to have other channels, they've got chips in them, probably memory to save your settings. They're all going to be affected, and that means all prices are going to go up. So I had to do what I normally wouldn't do with such a long length of time, is do what they call a 3/4 build. And that is, you take the positive devices out of your old machine and you move them into a newer machine, and that's only got parts that you desperately or need. Now, I haven't done much testing on the old machine, but I do know it still powers up. So I took the power supply out and I used a meter. I've got you stick the cables into this device, and it tells you if it's still got a 12-volt rail and a 5-volt rail. These are things for your board, and everything checked out fine, within tolerance is what I'd like to say. Okay, so didn't need that. Graphic card, no way can I afford another graphic card. That's really got memory. That therefore is pushing higher and higher at the moment. Okay, so I've still got the old graphic card, but the rest, the motherboard, the processor, yeah, needed changing. Now, I looked at this around the Black Friday sales. So this started back in November, and I bought 2 things in each month. Okay, so I bought a processor and a board in November, and those were in a sale. So they were in a 50% sale at that. So what was a £250 motherboard was not that. It was 50% or even more. I think in this particular instance, it was 60% off. The processor, a £500 processor, was dropped like a stone, especially if you bought one that was not, what's the word, top-end gaming. Now, I looked at what I do, and I do more sort of like production than I do play games. Yeah. So Ryzen chips, because there's 2, Intel and Ryzen, and generally, I think can do both, but they do one better than the other. I look at Ryzen as being a gaming chip with quite good production value. Intel, on the other hand, have had a terrible number of years. Their chips have changed totally. They've got what they call now efficiency cores. So this processor, just as you know, just when I'm talking to you now, has what they call 20 cores, right? But there's not 20 cores in it, because there are main cores and there are efficiency cores, and it's got, I think, 12 efficiency cores. So it's an i7, and so it's not even the top end, and it's so it's a mid tier, because there's i3, 5, 7, 9. I've got a 7, and there are 3 in that. There are, I think there's a 4 series, a 7 series, and a 9 series. I've got the 7. Sorry, it's a 265, I think mine's called. So there's a 2.4, a 2.6, and a 2.9, something like that. And the K means it's unlocked. So I went for an unlocked mid one, in a mid-range one, and that processor was like 500 and something pounds, and dropped like a stone to just over 100 again. So cut back on just about everything. Bought those 2 items in that month, and moved forward. So then we move into, you know, like December, and the RAM prices just were ramping up, and I bought what they call refurbished RAM. Now, it was A1 refurbished RAM, which means that it's been tested fully, still has its full warranty, and was listed on the company that I bought it from as being RAM that may not have even been used, been bought by a customer, and then returned because no longer needed. That's where the A1 tier comes in. So I bought that and bought a case. Now the case was marvelous, really, for me. It was again 3 tiers. There is a standard case, an RGB case, and an ambient pro case in this particular instance. And the RGB case, believe it or not, was lower than the base case. This is how mad it was. So I bought this case with RGB fans, which I don't need, but the cooling is welcomed. And looked at the reviews and measured it up and didn't go for the standard. I went for the XL, and it was just over 50, 60 quid for a case that's normally £171. So again, cost cutting. Have to cost cut. Can't do it any other way. So the case arrived, and I couldn't build this thing until things like the CPU cooler and things like that arrived. And they arrived last minute, before Christmas. And therefore couldn't really start the build. All the devices I bought, I carefully looked at as well on the return date, and the return date was 31st of January. Now, most things are within the month with Amazon, but with some technical things, they're 2 months. So everything I was buying was that. The case turned up, looked perfectly fine to me. And I started to build it, and there was a cable missing. And it was an essential cable because it was the front fans, and it wouldn't reach the header of the board. Now, I didn't know if that was because of the XL case, but my mind went, if you've got an XL case, they're going to give you extenders. And I looked in the book and it said extender, and it weren't there. So I phoned up Amazon and they said, oh, sorry to hear that, but we don't stock that cable. It comes with the case. What we'll do for you is we'll send another case to you. Totally new case. And we'll send you a return label for the other one. I went, fine. And he said, take your cable out and, use your old case or use the new case, whichever way you want to do it. And just take the cable out and we'll get the old case from you. I went, brilliant. Thank you very much. So it turned up and there was no extender cable again. So had to do some research. So I looked at it, and apparently the manual is a manual for all of their cases. They're built the same way. And the extender is only with the Ambient Pro. That's the one that's got a hub inside it to put all different fans in. That's the only time you get the extender cable. So I thought to myself, what can I do here? So I bought some extender cables that might, what they call, change its end connector. Right, what do I mean by that? The fans have got proprietary connectors, and they daisy link, and therefore you will suffer the point of where the end fan in the daisy chain comes, and you'll just have an end connector that is proprietary. And I took a proprietary cable from one of the cases, put it in, and changed its end, right, to a legacy cable. And that worked. And when I switched it on, oh, lo and behold, one of the fans didn't work. So I thought to myself, well, I've got this other case. I can easily phone Amazon. I'll phone Amazon and I'll tell them I've took one of the fans out as well. Because when I unscrewed the fan, it was cracked. And that's why it didn't work. It was screwed in too tight. Probably done at manufacturer side. So I put that in and phoned Amazon up, and I said, you could pick this up now, but just be warned, it doesn't have that cable in it anymore, and I've had to take one of the fans out. and he said, let me just look into this for you. And he went away, and no word of a lie. 5 minutes, he came back later and he said, I've got good news for you. And I went, oh, okay, what's the good news? He said, you can keep that case. I went, well, thank you. It's very nice of you. I've got this case working now. Are you sure? Because you can have this back. I mean, it's missing bits. And he went, no, you can have it. We'll cancel any collection. You can have it with a Merry Christmas. By the way, I don't know why he said that, because it was after Christmas. It was the day after Boxing Day. And therefore, I have now 2 cases, one of them working, the other one not, but it can be used as parts. So I've got now 2 other fans in it that work, and I can use those as additional fans in this case. Now, you may be thinking in this, are fans that important? Well, they're not. But this processor, the reason I mentioned it before, Intel are in a bad way, because their processors ran hot, incredibly hot. This CPU cooler on it is not an AI, what do they call it? AIO, all in one. It's not a water cooling thing. It's an air cooler. And this air cooler is a vacuum air cooler, and what I mean by that is it hasn't got a solid block at the end. It's got a vacuum tube which cools it quicker, and it's got no end of fins in it. I mean, it's a huge block. I mean, it covers nearly the whole motherboard, to be quite honest, and it's only got 2 fans in it. Some demand free, and that's 2 at the end and 1 in the middle. This one's got 1 in the middle and 1 at the end. It doesn't have anything at the front. So air comes in from the front fans, goes through the solid block, and then jettisons by the other 2 fans out the back end. And there's an exhaust fan. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going a bit too in depth with technical, and I must be boring you to death. But it got built. I got 2 cases now. And then it was the configuring. Then it was taking the other machine apart and putting the hard drives in from that, and etc, etc. So in the end, I'm where I'm at now. I have no idea whether this is recording properly or not. I've done a couple of tests, and everything seems fine. But it's a real bugbear. You know, you do all of this, and then you got to set everything back up. Now, luckily, through the years, like my collector's software, the database software I talk about, if you install it, you can point the folders at the old folders and then hit refresh, and it will bring all of your old settings in. I wish OBS had that. It doesn't, from what I can tell. I haven't looked that closely in it. I think there are certain things that you can export, but most of the time I had to get this, copy the stuff across, and it causes conflicts, because then it lists 2 source devices when there's only 1, but it lists a ghost one and all this sort of stuff. And you have to go through all sorts of tutorials to find out that if you remove the remnants of the old source in every scene that you've got, it will disappear, and all of this sort of stuff. So cut it all short, PC's built, it's configured to a point, and I'm here. That was my week, other than caring for my mum, getting the new year out the way. And the downside, that one thing that I wanted to talk about, on the 2nd of January, we had to say goodbye to one of my mum's best friends. Her name was Janet. And although she died end of November, it took until the 2nd of January to get to the point of saying goodbye to her. A long time. And then comes the issues, getting my mum into the car when she's been using sort of like taxi services that have got mobility, mobility control in their car vehicles. And it was very, very difficult. I could see the strain on my sister's face when we were trying to do it. I tried to stay as calm as possible, but was worried all the way through it. And totally get it that we should only use my car in emergencies. You know, money is always tight, but safety and health is priority. So it's recognized that it's possible, and it might be easier after these injections, but we don't know. So I'm happy that it did it, but not happy in the way we had to do it. And definitely other vehicles should be a priority to take mother anywhere. I'm just glad that we attempted it, to be quite honest. And it wasn't too difficult. Not when I say difficult, it wasn't too strenuous on us all to do that. So we said goodbye to a good friend, and that's a horrible thing to do. A funeral the day after New Year's Day. How to start 2026? Not the best, is it? And there were a lot of people there. They all came up and saw my mum. They recognised my sister. I think they recognised me, but they didn't talk to me as much. The ceremony was brilliant. Singing hymns took me back to my childhood when I was in a choir for a short period of time. And, you know, it was all things bright and beautiful, you know, that sort of thing. And it was what it was. And Mum was very tired and went to bed early. She went definitely to bed early New Year's Eve. And she actually mentioned she didn't know how many. She knew that because I told her it was New Year's Eve. She said, "Oh, fireworks." She knew. That's a good sign. So she wanted to go to bed early because she thought she might wake up with the banging going on about midnight. I told her that I might stay up until midnight and I'll pop my head round. And I did pop my head round and she was asleep. Bless her. So I went straight to bed.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
I went straight to bed about 10 past 12. Didn't even see the end of the display that was being shown on telly. And then let's talk about telly because it was bloody awful. There we go. That was my week. So let's get the news out the way. We've done that, and I'll turn the page, and we get to the shout-outs. And recognizing instantly what my YouTube watching this week is, it's no surprise that everybody is with their family and stuff, and so there will be less, you know, to shout out to. But I always make a point of saying anybody watches this, thank you very much. Your support is incredibly welcomed. I use this as therapy, and I use it as a legacy for family. That was going back to day one, what this was all about. It is a diary. People don't like some of the things that go into a diary. Totally understand it. But this is what you'd put in a diary. And that is why it's there. And I will repeat, it's the thoughts and feelings on the day, like any diary would be. And it doesn't mean that that's how you feel over a long period of time. It can do, but most of the time it's just gut things. So just to mention these people, so there's Ian Hill, The Ramblings, Rocket Bunny, Sandra Clark, Martroid, Steve's Gaming Part 2, Wee Bob Art, Robert's Retro Gaming, Frank Holder, and Colin Jones, aka Ponder. All of them have made a comment, but thank you to everybody. So I'm going to read out some comments now, but I'm just going to take a short break. It's bloody cold in here, and I need to sort of like do something about it a little bit. You wouldn't believe, you probably can't tell from the skin tone or anything, but my hands are just like ice at the moment. So I'm going to run those under a tap and then come back, and we'll talk further about into the blog. So won't be a moment. And I'm back. Warm my hands up a little bit. And while I was warming my hands, I got myself a water. And I looked at another YouTube video that came up on alert, which was really quite good. And I won't talk too much about it now, but it was called Linus Tech Tips. And he was talking about why play modern AA games when you can mod older games and make them photorealistic, and is it worth it? And what do you need to do it? Very interesting. I want to watch the full thing on there. But it was talking about the pros and cons, which is breaking the game, how many mods you need, what is it worth doing that on an older game, etc, etc. And it was very interesting. So you can make like photorealistic effects on old games like Skyrim in particular. That would be one. GTA, that would be another. But they were doing it on something called Cyberpunk. Now, I've got Skyrim. I've got GTA. Don't have Cyberpunk. And I'll talk a little bit maybe on whether I'm going to be playing games and stuff another time. But right now we're going to do the comments, and they're in no particular order, and I'm just going to read them out verbatim. And you know, I'll digress in those conversations in there. And they're not in any particular order, but the first one is from my friend Rocket Bunny, who I'm itching to go back and play Planet Crafter with, but it's just been one of those times where Sunday seems to be the only real time I can do it, as long as it doesn't go too long into the night, because I have to get my mum to bed. There's nothing that I could do. The blog and getting it out there takes quite a bit of time, and therefore, you know, my sister has a life. I make sure that she's got a quality of life, and that means looking after my mum, and I can't be away from her for too long until she goes to bed. So most of the time is cleaning and doing work and all that sort of stuff and watching TV with her. But anyway, what does Rocket Bunny say? He says, "Hi Del, Happy New Year to you and your mum. Listen to your blog while slowly building my medieval empire in a game called Bellwright. It takes a lot of time to learn everything, but it's very easy to pick up and put down if you don't have much time." So there's a thing that I need to take into consideration. You can also leave it running while you go do something, as your villagers all keep going with all their daily tasks, moving your progression forward. Definitely something I'm going to be looking into. All of that talk of cricket last blog took me back to my school days, playing for the school and then our town. I did do some county trials, but wasn't good enough. It's pretty much that mirrors me. Later on, I enjoyed playing in the Kent, Riverside and Village leagues. Yeah, all my cricket was at school, and my dad. My dad is the happiest memories of it all, and it's drummed into me, leading forward with the bat, making sure that your leg is not in front of the wickets for an LBW, leg before wicket, and all of that sort of stuff, and letting the ball do all of the speed, so you just basically follow the ball behind and let it go. All of that sort of stuff. It's still in me. Great stuff. He continues, my claim to fame was hitting 32 not out against the celebrity side, including Ricky Richardson from the Windies. I still have the paper clipping and photo of that one somewhere. I laugh out loud. Shame I had to give it up in the 2000s when I started travelling abroad a lot for work. Yeah, and my cricket sort of ended just because of work, really. I could have gone to our local leisure centre and joined something. You could do indoor cricket, all of that sort of stuff. I was never that good, I think, with practice balls. There were cricket balls made of leather. They're red. You can see the seam. There are white, all solid like plastic balls, which are rock hard, made in a different way. And those balls, when they hit you, wow. Amount of times I had dead fingers where the ball hit my hands. And spinning them was difficult as well. I did do a little bit of indoor, but not much. He continues, rest in peace, Chris Rea. Him and the Queen are the only music that can put me even slightly in a Christmas mood. Yeah, can totally understand that. I wanted to second your recommendation for the Xbox Elite controller, a staple of my PC gaming, although if it's too expensive, the Xbox Series X and PS5 controllers are also very good. And it's funny you should say that, because when I went out and got that, it was in a sale, and it was, what, two years ago? I'd actually got a second PS5 controller that is still in its box now. I could use it. The PS5 controller is a wonderful controller, and didn't really think about it, to be quite honest. It was at a time when my mum's health was okay and all of that sort of stuff, and wasn't thinking too much of the future, and it cropped up that I needed a controller for something, and I bought that one. It's just one of those things. You continue. Question for the week. You mentioned on Steam you are progressing your new PC build over the holidays. Talked about that. When it's finished, what new game will you play to really stretch its legs? Question mark. Did you say what graphic card you were going to get for it? Or will you just move your current one into it? And as you know now, I moved my current one into it. It's just a pricing thing. And the game thing is the same thing. I was a little bit shorter this month, this particular Christmas period, to buy everything something. And it was very difficult who to choose, and thank God for things like the Steam sale and that sort of stuff. Very few physical gifts were bought. There was a few digital games that I sent that cost very little money. And I looked at the sale and thought, will I be buying anything? And I thought to myself, I doubt I'm going to be able to. If there is something, I will try, but it won't be anything above a tenner. And that means older games. I'd love to buy new games, and this one called Bellwright sounds very interesting. But if it is in that bracket, which I think it will be, of over 20 quid, I have to go, no. Can't really afford it at the moment, mate, and it really is sad for me to say that. But I also have to think time, how much time will I have on it? But you've lightened my mood and highlighted you can leave it running, and its game model means that life continues with peasants or whatever it is that do things that you tell them to do while you go off and do something. That sounds interesting, because I can come in, do something for 10 minutes, go away, come look after my mum, come back 30 minutes later, do another quick 10 minutes or whatever it is. And then when she's gone to bed, I can concentrate. That sounds ideal to me. And I tell you what, it sounds like one of those ones that you could do as a series. I used to like doing series stuff. But one of those things that happened was, as the two that I started, Atomfall and Kingdom Come, as much as I loved what I was doing in them, my mother collapsed, and it was March, and it was about that time that those games came out, and I just haven't been able to return to them. So, yeah, I'm definitely interested in Bellwright. You say take care, good, have a good week, cheers, and all I can say to you is Happy New Year to you, mate, and let's hopefully get back to Planet Crafter, and I'm going to be looking into that game. You got me intrigued. I wonder what the Steam sale says about that. Have a think. Moving on to Ian Hill, The Ramblings, person I do live stream with, and it was weird the last 2 weeks because they fell on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. So that was quite good and quite bad at the same point, just purely because of time and mum in bed and all of that sort of stuff. But a brilliant channel. Please go over and have a little look at it. He does so much stuff. He's put, "Hi Del Boy, hope you and your mum are okay, and we are now into a new year, and I wish you both all the best. Let's just hope 2026 is not as bad as 2025, and that's my hope." That's all I can say about that. I enjoyed our New Year's Eve live, and it was good to have Jamie as a special guest. Jamie, by the way, is Muckman-Movies. Fantastic guy, tell you that. His channel's immense. If you're ever interested in physical media, films, and foreign films as well. So it's a totally diverse thing that he does. I hope, though, 2026, my live stream will offer so much needed escape for you. When you are a full-time carer, you need to have that, and you do. That's one of the pluses that I've had throughout the year. I feel glad that Christmas and New Year celebrations are finished, and we can get back to some normality. Bah humbug. Yeah, and I feel the same. It's one of those things where now it's getting the Christmas decorations down. My mother would have normally have said between Christmas and New Year, take them down, but she's been saying all the time, "Oh, don't take them down, they're pretty." And that's dementia in you. And I've got no choice but to do that today. That's one of the things that I'll be doing. It was good to watch films not related to Christmas. The Siege of Pinchgut, a 1959 film, was an Australian film set on a small island in Sydney Harbour. It was a great period piece of the 50s, black and white, full of atmosphere, with an outstanding location. Another film I watched is the more well-known The Untouchables, a Brian De Palma film with a great cast, an early Kevin Costner role playing Elliot Ness, and Robert De Niro as Al Capone. Sean Connery steals the film and won an Oscar for his performance. Couldn't say it better myself. That's pretty much all of it. In fact, the only thing that I remember also about The Untouchables, not only have I got the complete Arrow sort of like box set of it, I think it's Arrow, it could be Universal or some of the others, but it's a deluxe set, is during that period, because we're talking 1987, I was heavily into my computers. So I'd had an Amiga then. Still had just got rid of my Commodore 64. And therefore, games had licenses, from films, and Untouchables was one. And it was not a good experience. Could have been so much better. Wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. So that brings back some memories for me there. So thanks very much for that. You continue, The Life of Chuck, a 2025 film, was one of my favourite films of the year, and I watched it twice. I think it was totally unexpected. It seems to came out of nowhere. It's that special kind of film that stays with you and you fall in love with it. And I can't say that again any better. Life of Chuck was a blind buy for me last year. Somebody came up to me and said, if you're ever into Salem's Lot and all of this sort of stuff, Stephen King in particular, you probably will like this. It's a roller coaster of a film. And yeah, it was. Really enjoyed it. I'd have loved to have watched it in one complete block, but like anything with being a carer, you watch things in stages. And I watched it over 2 nights, to be quite honest. And I really, really enjoyed it. So you continue. So my question is this week is, what do you dislike about this time of year? You can give it the full Del Boy rant if you want. The rant is something is a persona that I do in his channel. I don't generally rant. But let me think. What do I hate about this time of year? The weather. That's obviously been talked about at the beginning of this. Price hikes. Don't like that. Yeah, that can go do one. You know what I mean? I don't care what they say. Where they say rail tickets are 50% off at the beginning of this year and all of this sort of stuff. They've hiked the bloody prices up. And every January they talk about trains in the news, right? Probably unfairly. They don't talk enough about price hikes in flights and all of those sorts of things. Fuel obviously dominates an awful lot of it. Also, price hikes aid with maintenance and improvements, But how many years have we gone through where the media, and I'm talking the media here, talk about where is this money that's gone into the maintenance of this? Trains still don't run on time and stuff. I think that's a bit harsh, but I think it was true for a big block of time, and I think it's just nice to keep whipping that old sort of like story. I know a few people here that work on trains and trams, which I've talked about in the past, and they will be biting at the bit, I'm sure, as I say all of this. But remember, I'm talking about the media. I don't use the trains that much. I used them twice, 2 years ago, twice the year before. The job changed so much that trains weren't a thing. When I wasn't working for my current employer, I was using trains much more. I had to go to London at least once a week. So, of course, I was sort of like in the midst of train. But then, again, it was paid for, the journeys were paid for by the company that I work for, not me individually buying stuff. So, you know, I wonder sometimes when they're talking about these rail passes, you know, that last 3 months and all of that sort of stuff, that the companies haven't been the ones that have been buying it, or whether they are actually coming out of the budget of the person that's having to buy it. I'm sure there's a huge, there's a split in there somewhere. But there you go. My rant for price hiking ends. The weather, what can you do about it? What else do I hate about this time of year? Yeah, cold and money is obviously two big ones. That I hate going when I go back to work, the catch up. You know, every time we go on a holiday or whatever it is, emails. We're going to do things this way. I'm not a big person on change. I've always turned around and said I'm a bit of a chameleon and an adapter, and I'm a bit slower maybe than others, but the very need to keep changing is something that we have to do. The forcedness of New Year I don't like. The other thing I don't like is the New Year's resolution thing that we do. I haven't had a New Year's resolution in 15, 20 years. I've always had this basic one that said, do things differently than you did last year because last year didn't work. You know what I mean? And what's that as a New Year's resolution? It's not like, oh, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to give up this. I'm going to give up that. I'm going to start doing this. You know, doomed to failure. I look at it as maybe not for everybody, but doomed to failure for the majority. Oh, I'm going to go to the gym more. February comes along, not going anymore. Know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. I like things where you don't make those decisions up on the 1st of January. You phase yourself into them. Like you might have a goal and say, do you know what? I'm going to try and do a 5-mile park run. And I'm going to build up to the point where it is in March or April. And I'm going to aim for that. And I'm going to start using things that I can do at home, like moving your legs up and down while you're sitting in a chair and all of this sort of stuff when you can't get out. And you don't have the money for treadmills and gym equipment at home. That's the sort of thing I like. But there you go. I think that's it, really. I'm not going to go too much into this. We haven't got an amazing amount of time. But Ian Hill, what an interesting question. And I'm sure there's people are now thinking, what do I hate about the new, giving something a new year push? Have a comment maybe to yourself on this. I would definitely say it's worth having a think and give you something to maybe comment on. Ian Hill, The Ramblings, talk about him a little bit later on, but like every time, there's a description to this blog and there are links there. Please use them. Please support Ian. I support him as best as I can, and I don't think I do a fantastic job on it. So please just do what you can and support him. Salute, my friend, and we move on to Martroid. And he's just put a very simple one. Hi, Del. As we head into a brand new year, is there an upcoming movie or TV series you're looking forward to diving into? Wishing you and your mum and yourself a fantastic new year, mate. And what an interesting one. When it comes to the movies, it's very difficult. But I did do a live stream on New Year's Eve, and I wrote down some of my best films of the year, worst films of the year. There was a couple of films that are coming up in 2026. Ones I wrote down were 28 Years Later, Bone Temple. That comes out in January, believe it or not. The Odyssey is definitely my highlight of next year that I'm looking forward to. It's a Nolan film. He who did the Batman films, Interstellar, Oppenheimer, all of those. Really looking forward to that. I think we need an epic film to look forward to, and it sort of looks a lot gladiator-ish. So that gets me as well. Historical head on there. Dune Part 3, because I've enjoyed Dune Part 1 and 2, but there's a trepidation with that on its image now is so high up because they've done a TV series and 2 films that you wonder where is the fall off? You know, is it going to turn into a Hunger Games? Is it going to turn into, you know, that sort of thing? Is it going to fall off a little bit like Alien and all those wonderful films that we loved at the beginning and just got worse? I'm hoping the quality stays there, because as much as I loved Dune 1, I thought Dune 2 was actually the slightly better film, and I might be in a minority when saying that. But I still actually have a very fondness and key to the original Dune film from the 80s. Love that film. I've watched it many, many times, probably more times than the newer ones. Yes, in fact, I have definitely watched the older one. And what a great film that is, even though it was panned, universally panned. Many different versions of it. I've got a gaming history with Dune. So Dune is obviously one that I wrote down for 2026. And then, of course, there's my old mate, Spider-Man. And as much as people always are turning around saying, I'm superheroed out, sick of Marvel, sick of DC, all of this sort of stuff, when you have a character that's been in your life that you remember all the way back to when you were about 5 years old, and you've been a major collector of a lot of things related, Spider-Man Brand New Day is coming out, and therefore I've got a vested interest in that. Less so all the other Marvel films, Doomsday and all of that will be out in December of next year. It's too far off. So much speculation going on with that. And I just look at it and go, do you know what? I've got better things to occupy my mind than speculating over something that's not even out until December. Do you know what I mean? I hope it just turns out well. That's all I can say. TV wise, I know very little of what's coming out on TV. And that's amazing when you consider that back in the past, September was a highlight for me, because that's when in America all new things started, you know, on the NBC and all of this sort of stuff. But now we've got Netflix and Disney and all of that sort of stuff. I don't look that closely. I'm trying to think. There is one that I want to do, which is called Polybius. I've watched the first episode of it and liked what I saw, but I haven't watched any more yet, and it's just purely down to time. So, yeah, that's one that I would definitely be looking into. And then there's Slow Horses and a few others that my friend Denny, and I miss him like mad, not commenting at the moment, but of course he's busy at work, and he's had a stinking cold that's took over 6 to 8 weeks of his life, and it's affected his family. But I miss our chats and that. definitely told me I need to watch, and I haven't watched one episode. And it's got Gary Oldman in it, I believe. I mean, that's unheard of for me. I would have been all over that. And it just shows you how adapting has come into my life, and in a bad way, because I'm sure my mental health would be better if I had more time. But what can you do? You're trapped, you know. So that's it really, Martroid. I hope that answers your question a little bit. I'm sorry it's so small, but maybe there was some answers in there. And salute, my friend. And we move on to another one. This one doesn't have a channel either, but is a good friend to the channel, and I like listening, well, not listening, but reading out the comments from anybody. But it's really nice to have a old one come back, and that's Sandra Clark. She's put, hello, Del. I hope you and your mum and sister had a nice Christmas and you got time to relax a bit. Yeah, and I think my sister had a good time from what she could. She's very busy with my mum, and of course she's a grandma now. She won't like me saying that, but so I'll try and shy away from that. So you know, she's very busy. We had a nice Christmas here, although it's not strictly over yet, is it? It is by now. We're reading this out. As for Christmas dinner, I had the idea of cooking the turkey the day before and did it once about 7 years ago. And neither I nor any of the family felt it was as nice as cooking it on the day. So since then, I cook it on the day. This year, we had a leg of lamb for a change. Did you get any Christmas presents off of your friends or family? I got a PS Portal, which I didn't expect at all. It's really fun, as I can play my PlayStation 5 games in bed now. All the best, Del, and I hope 2026 is better for you. There's a few questions in there, and I went over them quite quickly. When it comes to the dinner, I did it the way that my mum showed me before she got dementia, and it seemed to work. And that was cooking the meat the night before. You cut the meat on the day, and you cook it in the gravy in a pan. So much better than microwaving anything. And all the vegetables were done in a pan. Everything was, the roast potatoes and everything were done on the day. They were peeled, boiled, and roasted. But the meat was the day before. I can't remember, and it must be quite far back. It must be before my dad died, where we cooked the meat on the day. It's 2.5 hours of anybody's time, roundabout, for one meat. You know, like we had a crown bird this year, so no bones, and it still took 2.5 hours to cook. We had a honey glazed gammon joint, and we did it like they do at a carvery, sliced it to bits of both on the plate, you know. And I tried to do that effect with my mum with lots of veg. She likes sage stuffing balls and that sort of stuff, so I did those. And of course there was the sausage wrapped in bacon called pigs in the blanket, from my point of view, being an older person, and chipolata sausages and all that sort of stuff. Terrible if you're a vegan and a meat eater to be talking about this, so I'll go away from that. But it tasted lovely. My mum ate it all, so we were ecstatic, my sister and I. My sister is always turning around saying, the more you tell me of how much she ate, and she ate most of it, the more I'm happier. And that's what we are. You start to lose your appetite, you start drinking less, you're on the way out. And we try to make sure that she has 3 meals, a bit in the morning, a main one in the midday, and a light one in the evening. And that's where my sister is excellent, because she cooks salmon or pies or whatever with lots of veg and stuff. And I cook something light, like a baked spud with cheese or beans on toast or whatever it is in the evening. And she has toast or cereal, or mostly it's toast really. I don't think she has cereal. So that's something I thought of just then, but it's not true. Toast with an orange marmalade. She's gotten into that with tea, cup of tea. She has tea all day. And we just monitor all the time. So that's that bit. When it comes to presents, yeah, my aunt and uncle got me something, but that was it. My mother was always the person that bought me a present, and you know that didn't happen this year, obvious reasons. Nothing from the rest of the family. Don't pick on them for that. That's a choice. I obviously feel sad about that. But friends, I got a couple of digital games sent to me. I think there was two. I can't remember the names of them all. I think Jambon was one. That springs to mind. But it's not about the presents, is it, really? Christmas is a time to be with family and that. And I was blessed with, having family here. Didn't see much of them. But what I saw and what I was wished was gratefully received. So that's pretty much Christmas. You may look at that and go, oh, that's a bit sad, isn't it? Don't be. It is what it is. I wish it was different. Always have done, all other years. But the other years have been the same, more or less. The big downside was my mum. She always put thought into getting stuff, and that's missing in my life. But she's here. That's the greatest present I can have, isn't it? Yeah. Salute, my friend, and thank you very much for commenting. Absolutely wonderful. We moved to Steve's Gaming, and he's a wonderful friend of mine. Great channel. He put, hi, Del. I hope your Christmas was enjoyable and you had some time to yourself to relax and de-stress. My Christmas, nice and quiet, which is just what I needed after 9+ solid weeks of noise from the builders. Alas, they are back here on the 5th, so it all kicks off again. That's tomorrow. But until then, I'm going to enjoy the quiet time I have left. What have you been watching over Christmas? I've been watching a combination of Blake 7, Minder, Space Precinct and Z-Cars. I really don't watch any modern TV programs anymore. I prefer just to stick to my DVDs. And Blu-rays now, matey, remember that. Well, on with my question then. And just before we go any further, Steve's great and he's started doing his channel again, and he's asked a question for everybody that's out there, and I'll ask it for him here. And that is that he wants to do another series, like I was talking about earlier. He'd love your options on that, so please go over to his channel and do that. You may notice that I didn't do my introduction like I normally do. I think it was a suggestion, not a demand by Steve, but saying that the introductions, it's now old hat, isn't it? It's a bit ancient. I have to sort of agree. So all I can say really is, if you'd like to see a different introduction or whatever it is, and you've got a funny one, great. I thought of that one 2.5 years ago now, so it is old. And I thought it was fun. He turned around to me and said that he thought it was fun as well. But it is old, isn't it? It's the start of a new year. Let's start differently. So there we go. So nothing adverse going on there. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I'm just trying to find out where we got to. I prefer just it's my... Well, on with the question. So there we are. That's where I found it now. So we are just at the very start of 2026. Are there any games coming along in 2026 that you're looking forward to? Do you know what? It's like the last 3 years, I used to more than 3 years ago look and go, oh, that's coming out, that's coming out, that's coming out. And I don't do that anymore. It's down to money more than anything. I've got thousands, and I will say this, and it's quite true, thousands of games, thousands. And if I've played a third of them, that's bloody a high number, right? And that means that there's 2/3 I haven't even looked at. And that's bad, isn't it? I mean, that's like buying a record that's got 12 tracks on it and playing 2 of them. You know, it's bad. It's you don't do that. That's not, when you get something, you're supposed to watch it, listen to it, play it, whatever, right? Use it. Amount of stuff I've got that's still in their packets or whatever it is, it's got to change. And as the thing about it is, I am excited about choosing a game, right? I've got a new build. I want to know what I can push it to, right? So I am looking, but I just don't know what's coming out. I knew last year it was Kingdom Come that I wanted, Kingdom Come 2. And when it came out, I was so happy. But things happened and I didn't play it very much. So, any thoughts that you've got? Please go and support Steve with his gaming series. When it comes to me, any thoughts that you've got on a game that you think would be cheap that I might like and you'd like to see me play on a live stream some point, you know, after 9 o'clock, or a series I might be able to do, please do so. Do you know what? As content creators, we must be 2/3 of our time more thinking about what we can do than actually doing it. And then we're sad that it's not watched after all that thought and effort went into it. So it's content creators do things for others. So your input is imperative, you know. So that's all I can say. He's put, have a happy new year, and I hope this year is better for all of us, and all the best to me. And I'm sure that's to my mum as well. Didn't mention that, but I know that's what he means. Moving on, and salute to a great friend, my friend Steve. And moving on to another friend of the channel, and a friend that I've gotten to know quite closely now for quite some time, is Wee Bob Art. And he's listened along today. My job was doing the dishes and tidying up the kitchen and dining room. Literally all I do is listen to your blogs and Ian Hill the Ramblings live streams over and over again. I lead a sad life, no, but thank you very much for that. I must get out more content then. But they keep me company while I do these projects or chores. I think my neighbour thought I was mad as I burst out laughing while working away in the garden. Thanks for answering my questions on controllers, and I've had my eye on an X Arcade for some time, maybe later this year. And they brought out a brand new one. There's a gaming channel called Wicked Gamer, that's it. And X Arcade have brought out this white model. It's gorgeous, and you can buy a plinth with it, right? This thing comes with as a secondary item, comes with a plinth that you put this thing on, and it's adjustable. 2 joysticks, 9 or so, buttons on it and all that sort of stuff. A trackball like you'd get. Connectors so that you can plug any type of old connector into it. It's gorgeous looking. Bells and whistles everywhere. Price, I daren't look. When I saw this. When I saw that this metal plinth and it's made of steel, is a secondary item, I knew that this was a quality product that's going to cost a bloody fortune. So I didn't look. But if I was inclined, I'd be all over it. I really would. Continuing, maybe this year it would be nice to appear on a live stream. Just once, perhaps, to see how it goes. I will ask around at the time. If you do, please come this way. I did my live Christmas thing and I missed it so much. And I'm thinking of doing those again. But the trouble is I am trapped. At the times that I could do things. But I'd always look at a time element of this thing. But I tell you what, Mainmeister would have you on in a heartbeat. You've supported us on Ian's, and your film insight is great, and I'd love it that you could come on to Ian's channel because you're an artist. You've watched a diverse set of films. Every time you came in and you said, Dale, have you watched this film? Have you watched this film? My answer was no, because they weren't in the mainstream and I didn't hear about them. I think it was you that told me about the Holdovers, but I think it was almost in the same breath as Jamie Muckman-Movies that suggested it. It was in a summer of one year. And there we go. The rest is history. We learn by speaking to each other, don't we? My work between now and April is going to be very busy as we have a lot of major projects to deliver by the end of the financial year. Financial year is usually April to April, so that makes sense. That's usual, not always. I'm not looking forward to the multiple weekends of working, but the money will be good to have. Yeah, I wish I could work at weekends. There's none of that for me now. I used to do that. I'm glad I bought my PC maybe 2 years ago now, as it has 48 gig of DDR5 RAM, which would cost me a fortune at the moment. Please listen to the earlier on. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I hope your PC build goes well and look forward to new content as time and life circumstances permit. Couldn't say it better myself. Question for next time. I'm playing Project Zomboid again, which I enjoy going back to. I currently have 771 hours of play in that game. Wow, man, 771 hours. Think about that for a moment, right? That is years. Yeah. When you consider that, you know, you have a working life and that you split that up, say 2 or 3 hours a night, 5 nights, 5, 6, 7 nights a week, you know, every week for months and months and months. 771. Wow, what a figure. The weird thing is that the game's mascot cover character is a cute cartoon raccoon or a red bear. Can't tell. Not quite sure. It doesn't fit the gameplay or the description. Can you give me a movie or a game where the cover art or poster has totally give you the wrong impression prior to playing or watching? Most recently, the Roofman movie poster made me think it was a slapstick, silly humour movie, but turned out to be pretty decent. All the best to you and your family. Ooh. Let's have a think. The games one is probably the simplest one. Back in the day, right? 1981, 82, 83, right? You'd have drawn covers. They weren't these photo montage type things. And the back covers were misleading. You had a hand-drawn thing. And I remember seeing ones like Crazy Kong, right? Where you'd see a bloke panicking, running away or something, and there was something behind it, looked like a barrel, and that was it. And that was supposed to be Donkey Kong, right? A derivative of Donkey Kong. Where was the Kong bit in it? Right? You know, it's like, right, so I'm dodging barrels, am I? Yeah, but you do more than that, don't you? Not the best variation of something, but there were lots of things like that. You know, the arcade ones were not bad, but some of the games where they were hard to even describe are hard to draw. That's what I want to say. The game, like in the early games, there was a set of, you know, the Asphalt trilogy by Epix, right? Showed a picture of a dungeon with a bloke leaping into a pit or something with a sword hanging out. You play that game, you're walking around 2D or slightly isometric things, stumbling forward, and a sound effect would be there and a little sprite that looks like a spider coming towards you. Does that look anything like the bloody game? No, it didn't. Right? So back in the day, you didn't expect it to look anything like that. But nowadays, it better be like this. And most things that you buy now, Do they look like the game? I don't know. Let me see if I got one around here. So here's a game. Look, Astrobot. Does that look anything like the game? Right, there it is. Little creature leaping around. Astrobot. Right, look on the back. He's on some sort of boat. But it's the cover. Does that cover tell you what you're doing in this game? Does it buggery? No. Let me see if I can find another one. All right, let's have a look at this one. I suppose this one's not bad. The Evil Within. Picture of a head with some slime all over it. That's what it looks like, the game. Does that give you the game more impression of the game? Yeah, than that. I don't know. Have a look. Yeah, okay. Here's one. Typical, right? Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. Bloody big box. What does that tell me? Seriously, what does that tell me? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Looking at the back, an impression. Yeah. But bollocks is what I have to say to that. Here's one. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I can see a line going between two characters. I take it one of them is Ratchet, the other one's Clank, with a rift between the two. Yeah. Does it tell me what I'm doing in it? Does it tell me I'm running around shooting like a bloody maniac and trying to get somewhere in the game? Does it buggery? Nothing. No. Look at that. Does that give me much more of an impression? No. And I suppose I could go on and on and on. When it comes to films, I think, yeah, many of the Marvel ones are guilty. I'll tell you what, a lot of people talk about this. We used to have drawn artwork for the posters outside the cinema of the film you were going to watch. And they were beautiful, right? Look at Jaws, in particular, right? What have you got now? Montage of heads of everybody that's in the film with some sort of glowy super effect in the middle. That's it. What does that tell me about the film other than Robert Downey Jr. is in it again? No. Like I say, it's weird. It's all down. I mean, we Bob Art will know this more than me, that you have something like Jaws and you're talking about quality and a product that somebody has put their time into and tried to tell you a little bit about this film. And if you look at the Jaws poster, it's a bloody big head of the shark swimming up to somebody swimming along the top of the water, and it looks like they're going to be attacked. What is Jaws other than that? Right? Tells you everything. Right? Having a picture of the protagonist, like, say, a picture of Jason or a picture of Freddy with their claws out, right? What does that tell you? Or a picture of an ideal one, Wolverine and Deadpool last year, was it? What does that tell you? Nothing. Two characters are in it. Well, that's it. But I want to know what the bits of the story. Do you remember the Bond posters where you had a picture of Bond with his gun like this, and all the way along, going along there, you'll see the submarine and the events and cars traveling and some sort of bank robbery or whatever it is. There would be everything that was in that film in that poster. That's what we want. I remember the days of the drawn art of Star Wars. You had Luke with his lightsaber above, and there was all the TIE fighters coming out, and you had Leia grabbing hold of his waist and leg draped along the side, and all of this sort of stuff, right? What you got now? Montage of heads. Crap. hope that answers that, matey. Salute, he's got a channel. Please go and look at that. You would definitely, if you're into digital art. Moving on, we've got Robert's Retro Gaming. My friend Robert, Canadian royalty. Multitudes of stuff that comes out. If you don't go and support him, I don't know what's wrong with you. He starts off with Salute. What could I say? And Robert's put, I got through this blog in record time and now I'm commenting at the end of the week. Apologies for that. I won't remember most of the things that I felt I might bring up. One thing I have a response to, you're feeling that I have been overly harsh in my criticisms of Commodore 64 games. Oh, right, okay. I'll pause there for a minute because it is a criticism and it is something that I've brought up. But remember, I did say at the beginning, it's a feeling of what I am on the day and all of that sort of stuff. And I watch every day, and therefore I probably watched something of Robert's today. Now, when I was talking about criticism, the thing about it is that sometimes I'll see something that was on the Atari, and then a couple of days later or the next week is the same game on the Commodore 64, and something will be mentioned, and I'll go, yeah, but the 64 was 5 months old. Atari version was 6 years into its lifespan and things like that. Things that I know, you know. The other thing is that some versions of stuff are cracked and they break the game and they don't work, therefore, in the way that they were back then. The other thing is that early games, they used expanded sprites that looked bloody murky, and that's why it got its life spell of blocky. So, yeah, maybe I'm a bit overcritical, and I think maybe it's because I'm getting older, Robert. Don't take it to heart. It's just, as a watcher, I was noticing a trend where it was, this version's worse than this version. And when I looked at it, like, especially, I'll tell you that the one that brought this to my attention the most, Montezuma's Revenge, right? It wasn't like that when I played it. There was lots of jumping that was going on that I never had in mine. Don't remember that at all. And I played that quite recently. And I wondered if it's the version you were playing or it was the emulation or whatever. But that's neither here nor there. It's what I was trying to get at. So anyway, he put, I admit that might be true, as I'm an Atari person first, based on my ownership of the systems over my childhood, teen and young adult years. That said, I'm perfectly comfortable recognising quality games on the Commodore 64, and I've gradually come to realise that the massive library of the Commodore 64 contains a great many excellent games. I fear that the C64 may have been the superior machine after all. I'm going to disagree with you there. They both were superior at their times and eras that they came out. You cannot get anywhere near the colour on the Commodore 64 that the Atari had, right? You can come very close to sound on the Atari to the 64, although the SID, I believe, was the better chip than the Pokey, right? I think when it comes to scrolling that they were both the same, but we have to remember that in America, you were running at 60 hertz, and over here we're at 50 hertz, and the processor speed was slower on the 64 than the Atari, which is strange when you feel that the Atari came out years earlier, which shows the power of the Atari. And I think it could have gone on longer than it did. And I think it's more to do with the fact that it was so popular in America. It didn't have the popularity in Britain that the Commodore 64 ran for so long, and the Atari died. And we were sick over here of seeing rehashes of the same stuff, like the 7800 was no more really or less than the Atari that we saw in 1978, 79. You know, the same chips were being used with slight enhancements, but not enough. Not enough. So you put has been the superior machine after all. Maybe when I say that I think the Atari version is better. That's my opinion of that specific game. I won't say that simply because there is a version of the game on each system. No, totally get that. Like I said, I think it's more to do with me than anything. But I'm a watcher, Robert, and I'm a fan. And I'm a fan also of certain machines. You'll notice that if I do comment and there's a SNES game, I don't turn around and go, oh, but the Mega Drive was more superior and all of that sort of stuff. You'll probably notice it because I'm more confident, is the word, to explain where I fear there is a criticism of something that isn't actually there from my point of view. Yeah. And looking at both machines as I have, I feel I've got an insight. Yeah. So anyway, you continue. It would be terrific if you were able to participate in a high score challenge. Even playing the game once or twice and popping a score in is sufficient. I found a fair number of excellent games over the years while playing in the challenge. All the best to you and your mum in 2026 and also to your family. Yeah, and it's just a time thing, and I just feel to myself, I could do better and if I had more time and all of this sort of stuff, but maybe it'd be fun. You can, what I've tended to do with those kerfuffles and high score challenges is I have actually loaded them up and played them and I've gone, I'm shit at that. But I played it. They're great things, these high score challenges and stuff, because they make, when they're mentioned, they make you want to go, oh, I wonder what that's like. So it intrigues you enough just to switch something on and try it. So that's great. So all the best to you and your mum in 2026 and also to your family, and the same to you, matey. I'm pretty sure you had a great Christmas, a great New Year. You haven't said, but I knew that you're having your family round, and that's the important thing, isn't it? Eh? And you've still brought out content. So fair play to you, matey. I wish I could do that more than I do. And I'll try. Moving on, and salute to you, my friend, and please go and support my friend Robert. He's brilliant. So we move on to Frank Holder. Oh, we've heard from Frank Holder in the last couple of months. It's great. That's brilliant. It's interesting listening to your PC building chat, he begins. I built myself a PC last March, and the first thing I did was rip the RGB fans and the RGB lights out of the case and bin them, and fitted my own normal fans. Why do people put lights in PC cases? It's truly stupid, pointless, and a waste of power. You are the last person who I'd expect to have that nonsense in your PC, laugh out loud. If I were you, I would have not bought a case and used the case you currently have. Rip the parts out, clean it, install the new parts. Seems logical to me, and no freaking stupid RGB light nonsense. Yeah, now you've got a valid point, but you're also missing a point, right? The motherboard I bought wouldn't fit in a case that was made 13 years ago, right? It's a slightly larger than ATX case, right? And the headers are all over the shop. It would not fit in that case. That's a beautiful case, and I measured the dimensions of the base plate, and it would not fit because of where the power housing was, right? That's one. 2, RGB fans. Absolutely spot on. You couldn't be better at explaining that than I was. But when I was buying the case, the RGB case was cheaper than the bland nothing case, right? And the other thing about it is I'd have had to have bought new fans to replace the fans in this one because it was a XL case. So the processor requires more cooling because it's an Intel, and therefore you can't just rip them out and put the same ones in. It had 2 front fans in that one because it has above it trays where you'd put DVD drives, right? Don't put DVD drives in cases these days. In fact, the cases on the front are all fans. You try finding a case these days. You can do it, but it's very difficult finding a case that has a slot for you to put in your DVD drive. because people don't use them anymore. We've gone that USB route, right? That's what it's all about now, Thunderbolt USB ports. So it's a necessity and cost that makes you go down the route that you do. And I've had to move certain parts into this new case. That case is down there. The other thing you have to consider is that a waste over there anymore? No, it's not. So it can still be used. That DVD that's in that player, which is a Blu-ray writer, is still valid, and I can now move it to the right and have it as a store. Doesn't even have to be connected to a monitor. The operating system is still on it with the key, and I never transferred the key over to this build. It's a new key that's in this. The reason for that is I got 12 of these damn things. 12 still left of these Windows 10 Pro USB sticks with keys, and you can use the key and not put Windows on. Right? You can put that Windows 10 key in a Windows 11. It's the same media pool they pull the key from. So I've still got, like I said, about, I think, 10, 11 of them. So I put a new installation on, and that meant that the build that's on the SSD drive in there can still be used, and I can use it as a NAS store. So for me to do that, it needs to have the memory still in it. It needs to have the motherboard still in it. It needs to have the fans and the CPU still in it. And therefore, you couldn't transfer the fans. See what I mean? And I've had to have bought new ones. So you were spot on if in the old way that I used to do things and the way that I still do things now. But cost and the amount of years between the builds negated that. It had to be afresh. And like I say, are you going to turn down a case that's now £171 that you bought for 60 and not buy that because it's got RGB in it? No. You're going to do the same as I did, I would have thought. I would have thought, by the way. It's not what I'm implying that you would do yourself. So you are quite right. And I find RGB stupid. I mean, who wants to bloody put an app on their phone and start fiddling about with colours? And it's underneath your desk, right? Which is where mine is. Even if I had it on my desk, it'd be a distraction, that bloody light going like this. It'd be like having a lava lamp right next to you while you're playing a game, and you turn and place your eye and you go, that lava lamp, why have you grabbed my attention? And then you die or something, right? You go, why do I want that distraction? Yep, you are spot on, Frank. And anybody that's listening to this, listen to what he said. It is ridiculous, right? Colours and all this sort of stuff. Monitor. This is another one, right? Monitors that tell you the core temperature of your processor in the case itself. Isn't that on the side? Do I not have to turn around and look underneath and look at it when I've got something on my desktop that tells me this? Look, I'll quickly go down to GameCat media playback. Look, there's my cores and my temperatures. What do I need it in my case for? Bloody mental. Yeah, Frank, spot on with that comment. Thank you so much, and a happy new year to you. And we get to the last one, which is Colin. Colin Jones, aka Ponder, my friend who does a great blog. And just a terrific person to speak to. I wish I actually had him on speed dial or something, right? Could have asked him some questions. We could have a little chat, all of that sort of stuff. I only hear his voice when he's recording his blog, to be quite honest. Shame. He's put Happy New Year. He continues, we do have a thermometer, but I tend to know the cooking times. It's only on something I haven't cooked before. I need to use it. That's when we were talking about Christmas dinner. Glad things went mostly okay for Christmas, and good to hear about the cooperation with your sister over cooking. She did. She helped an immense amount of time. Sending my regards to your mum as always. Yeah, I always pass those on to my mum. RAM prices are ridiculous along with other components, and it's all down to greed. It is. The world has gone to crap due to the billionaires who want all the money, leaving nothing to the rest of us. This particular sector being companies crashing in on the AI bubble while it lasts. And we have to think about this, right? They're doing it for AI and chatbots and all of this sort of stuff. If you haven't got a PC to do it on, what am I going to chat with? Right? You take memory away from the masses. You're the classes, you know, the big companies. How are we going to chat to that thing? Right? You've took everything away from us or priced everything so high. There's nothing for us to use now. Right? You're going to go head on forward with technology. We're going to be stuck behind because we can't afford it. Think about this, will you? Jesus, it is greed. Right? I can't stand what I call boy racer case lights. It's just me. Yeah, we've just been talking about cases just now. My graphic card is a 4060 Ti, above mine. Decent enough to be fair, but I'm definitely not an AA gamer, and my choice of OS is a testament to that. Nothing to do with me with AAA games. I do production and I like to encode quickly and all of that sort of stuff. The 3060 Ti is the bad side of a card like that, going back that long. It's only a couple of generations. Remember, we're only up to a 5060 Ti if we're talking about that series. So there's a 5060 Ti, a 4060 Ti, a 3060 Ti, etc. Right? You go back to mine 2 generations behind. It's only got 8 gig of RAM. Now, this is very, very important. If you are a gamer, 8 gig is not enough. You need 10, 12, 16, right? There are 10 versions, 12 versions, and 16 gig versions of these cards, right? The GPU, I feel, is adequate enough, fast enough. But that shader cache and all of that sort of stuff wants huge amounts of RAM. And 8 is not enough. That's why 8 gig cards are still quite expensive because of just RAM at the moment, right? They're pricing things up of stuff they've already bought and they've got stock of, right? But they're moving it up to the prices of what it would be with the RAM shortage. I think that's wrong. You buy it at the price you bought it at with the statutory retail price, right? Or slightly above it. Not, oh, I'm going to raise it by 200 quid because RAM's short, right? So you get a 200 quid extra bonus for every person that's stupid enough to buy it. Wrong. 8 gig's not enough. We're doing it because that's all we can afford, right? Put that card that was 2 years ago that cost 300 and something pounds down to something that's more towards what it should be, which is the same price or lower, 200 quid, something like that, right? Not 500 quid. Load of bollocks. A lot of it. My rant over on that. But you've got a better card than me, matey, and you haven't put what RAM's in there. I bet you any money it's more than 8. Knowing you and your foresight for the future. Coca-Cola popularized the modern image of Santa, but the look existed before they used it for their advertising. Yeah, maybe I didn't put that across very well. Regarding the AI ad, they pulled it following a backlash. Let's hope that they've learnt that lesson. Doubtful. I believe it was slightly AI the year before, if I remember rightly, but it was totally AI, wasn't it, this time? I do remember reading something along that. Really good if you could take part in the kerfuffle. I had you as one of the people in mind. Thank you so much. That's the first time somebody's actually said, I had Del Boy in mind when I actually was discussing this, talking about this, or playing in this. Nobody does that. No, I wouldn't say it literally. I'm just saying I've seen so many others that are mentioned in stuff, you know, like, oh, I saw somebody play this, so I'm doing this, and I saw this, and I want to mention that channel, and they did this. Very rarely. And somebody's, you know, said, oh, I watched this film because I saw it on Del Boy's channel. I played this game because they saw it in a short on Del Boy's channel. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, doesn't happen very often. It's great. That's really nice. So I had you in mind. One of the people when I set up this session as games available on the Mister, because I know it's far easier for you to use Mister than ask about setting up MAME. It's not actually about that. It was my machine was 12 years old, matey, and it kept crashing. I could easily put MAME on this now, easily, but the Mister, I must admit, so simple to put it through my capture card. record it. It's a dumb no-brainer type thing. My question. What are your favourite aircraft types? Light, commercial, and military. Wow. That's a good question. Military, easy. Now, I wonder if anybody will guess it. I'll give a pause. No? Okay. Harrier jump jet. I loved that from the moment I saw it as a young man growing up. I loved that thing. Lifting off and then jetting forward. Wow. Blew my mind. It blew my mind to the point that I saw a picture on a science booklet that I used to buy. Do you remember around this time, people would buy part series of things, build this Starship Enterprise, collect these Marvel chess things, all that sort of stuff. They used to have periodicals that came out every 2 weeks, learn science and stuff, right? Had this picture of an aircraft with the wings turned opposite way round. So instead of that way, right, like that, like a normal aircraft, they were like that. And it was talking about how these wings were going to slice through the air, right? I don't think anything came of it. I think you'll see that design on the front tip of a jet, but I'm not sure. But the Harrier jump jet lifting up blew my mind. And knowing that was in Britain and made over here filled me with so much pride. And then Maggie Thatcher sold the rights or something to the Americans and all that sort of stuff, and anybody can bloody build it. Stupid. But Harrier jump jet, yeah. Light, I think, I'm a big fan of the Airwolf designed helicopter, the Bell. I forgot what it's called. The Bell something 3-1. I'm not sure. In the series, they called it a Black Mariah. That's just a nickname, but it's a Bell something or other. And they souped it to look like it was a jet thing when actually it's a good helicopter. But I love helicopters, and that's because I did do some lessons. Not long, couldn't afford them, but they were there. Wish I did more, but I learnt about rudder and pedals and that. It's weird how you do this. You steer with a stick and you've got rudder, you've got feet control. But anyway, but I never wanted to be a pilot. Well, I did as a kid. As soon as I had a couple of lessons, because Oxford is just up the road from me, and there's a little lane there, and I went up in a glider as well. This is when I was working for Lloyd's Bank. Yeah, we're going back to the Lloyd's Bank days, and I did some of it in Manchester as well. But no, I didn't keep it up. It was cost. And it's not something that many people would know about me anyway either. You only went for an hour. I'd get in my car, drive there, do that, come back, and I'd be back in this room, not talking about anything. Different time of my life. I always talked about things I did with people, but that was something I did as an alone thing. Anyway, commercial. I suppose I'm always in awe of Concorde. I thought that was brilliant. That would be one of my favourites. So light helicopters, commercial, Concorde, military, Harrier jump jet. How's that? Not the best answer you're ever going to get, but hope that was good enough for you. And that's the end. The comments. We're going to now move into what I watched. And I'm just going to take another little break. My hands have gone cold again. Jesus Christ, it's getting cold. And I'll be back in a moment for you, so it won't be long. And I'm back, and we just move into the last segment, so that's good. And it's New Year, so don't expect too much here. Watched on YouTube is always the first bit. And you know that I watch 4, specifically. They are This Week in Retro, Tech Moan, Gadget Show, Chronologically Gaming. Now, Chronologically Gaming, holiday. Gadget Show, holiday. This Week in Retro, holiday. I mean, nothing to watch. Tech Moan brought something out, but he didn't do anything last week. This week, it was a quick, very short video. It was about best volcano lava type lamps, which I'm not going to be buying, but it was fun and it made me laugh. So I've gone through that immediately. I mean, nothing really to report on. Definitely watch Tech Moan for a laugh. That particular video, best volcano lamp, but nothing from the others, and that's fine. We all need a break. My God. So watched on YouTube, Gans Teeth, who's commented in the past on my blog. He did a video, Super Vic TT. It's a game that's relatively new. On the old Vic 20 system, you need a 32k RAM pack, but it looks like sort of like Speed King. That it would have been an unheard of, really, to look like it does now in 2025, which is when it came out. But we're in 2026 now. But it's wonderful, and he showed it off, and I wouldn't have known about it. Nope. I've got quite a few channels that do retro stuff, but I think his was the first that I saw that in. Brilliant. So, topical. Adam Martin, a person that I used to watch because I like to learn about the old ITV idents. How ATV turned into Central and Central back into the ITV montage and all of that, and how long these channels were going and what headaches they had and how fast they turned from black and white to colour and all of that sort of stuff. He did a disastrous ratings for Christmas TV. Well, no brainer, innit? I mean, Christmas TV, shit. The highest, this no word of a lie, the highest rated programme on the BBC was The King's Speech, 6 million. Now, last year they had Gavin and Stacey, right? The last ever Gavin and Stacey episode. And I think they said 20 million watched it, right? 6 million was the highest for all of the top 10. That was the top tier watching, which only goes to prove that there are still moments that the family can watch something together. But if you don't have something new, something that the public want, they're not going to watch or tune in. I think the one below that was The Scarecrow's Wedding, which I watched. I liked, enjoyed. 4 million something, I think it was on that. So 2 million less than The King's Speech. And remember, The King's Speech was on ITV and Channel 4 and Channel 5 and lots of other channels. I don't know whether those 6 million were consolidated to just BBC. It'd be very difficult, I would have said, to... No, I wouldn't say it was difficult to measure that figure, but it could well be that BBC was usually the channel that people watched the official royal speech on Christmas Day. I don't think it proves royalty is still a thing. It's a tradition. I watched 5 minutes of it, I think. I was in and out doing the cooking. So didn't watch much, but the Scarecrow thing was on afterwards. I think we were eating at the time that was on, and it was therefore on, and I was turning around and looking at it and saying to my mum, "Are you okay with that, Mum? Is it nice? Do you want me to heat it up? Do you want some cranberry?" or whatever it was. So, but I was mostly then settled down. The King's Speech was when I was bringing it sort of like in, because it was about 3-ish o'clock. But yeah, disastrous. Then we moved to a channel called Steve Shives. He did Public Domain Day 2026. Now, this is interesting if you're into what you can do as a content creator, because Public Domain Day 2026 is the day that we switch over by a year and something that was copyrighted in the past suddenly becomes public domain. Now, in America, it's 95 years. So that means it's 1930, 31, right? So if you want to, and as he explained, as a very bad taste joke, if you wanted to do a porn of Mickey Mouse on his steamboat cartoon, you can. If you want to do an adventure with Betty Boop, you can, right? Because she first appeared in 1930. She wasn't called Betty Boop then, but you can have her character likeness and put it in anything you want. That's it. So there's not much in the way that you can do stuff. There's a lot of reading material, books. My God, books become non-copyrighted abundantly. Less so movies and TV. TV in the 30s? No, right? So you're talking movies, yeah. Music, old records, 78s, you know, it's all going to be the stylized big band or old movement, Charlton, cha-cha-cha and all this sort of type of music, which is not going to be high on anybody's content list. But it's very, very interesting. And copyright laws are different throughout the world. So there are going to be other things. But the click over is interesting. And it's interesting to know a little bit about what is now considered public domain. Moving forward, by the way, that was just a very brief thing. And if I got bits wrong in that, years and what particularly things that he was talking about, I can't quite remember, but it was 50 minutes long, so there was a lot of information and I'm not going to remember it all. My brain, even worse, in the next 2 weeks it's my birthday, right? So I'm going to click forward another year. Does that mean anything these days at my age? No. Is my health going to deteriorate because I click over one day? But you understand where I'm talking about in your mindset. You go, I'm a year older, so I'm going to get worse. Some people look at it that way. Moving forward, though, Jerry Anderson's channel was very interesting to me because they did a Space 1999 10 Scariest Moments. And it's interesting when you look at something like this, all the horror elements, the scariest bits, were mostly in season or series 1. Less so in the more family orientated second series. So, and some of the stuff they showed, I remember, and I was going, wow, yeah, I remember that body being turned around and it was a skeleton. Wow. And as a kid, what I thought about that, and the weird camera angles that they used and lens effects of zooming in and out to make things look scarier than they were, and the lighting. Yeah, as a kid it was an immense playing field for us. Marvelous. Then there was the Commodore 64 Appreciation Society channel. Now, I've never discovered this channel before, but they did Pit Stop and Pit Stop 2, the story and the legacy of Epix's 2 games, and I bought both of those games. And it's interesting to know where they started and where they ended with that. Obviously, the technical mastery was much better in Pit Stop 2, but you have to understand it's the ideas that you could have color-coded wheels to show the damage and all of this sort of stuff that was in the original game. And then taking a pit stop as a strategy, changing the wheels, whether you should go another lap with the wheels degraded like they were, because the mini game took so long for you to change the tire and refuel and all that sort of stuff. Immense amount of imagination for us as kids playing that. Loved it. And then Wicked Gamer, who I don't watch an awful lot of, but sometimes he turns up in my alert field, did a Fight Box R10. It's an all-in-one joystick at a budget price that has a trackball, lighting effects, and a joystick with Sanwa buttons. And it connects to almost anything, and he thought it was a good buy. And I thought to myself, yeah, I didn't have to probably buy that Mayflash. Always remember, though, you get what you pay for. I don't know whether you can undo it and put octa-gates and all of that sort of stuff and change the buttons out and all that. All I know is it looked good. It looked like it was a definite consideration over something like this Competition Pro, which, don't get me wrong, perfectly adequate. But if you're looking for something a little bit more busier for yourself, the Fight Box R10. Can it? He posed the question: can it do it all? And it nearly did. Didn't have a spinner and stuff, but it was still good. Excuse me, needed to get a bit of liquid. Film, TV, and soundtrack YouTube is what we move to now, and we've got Ian Hill, The Ramblings, right at the top. I watch everything he does, not because of our support for each other, because it's bloody interesting, right? That's the thing, right? I watch stuff and comment on stuff that's interesting. Nothing else. Don't care about the rest. Won't mention it, right? What did he do? Top 5 historical films. He does this on a daily basis. They're shorts. They're about a minute, 2 minutes long. 1975 to 81. So he's moving more now into the modern era. Then you've got Doctor Who review of the censor. Is it the censor? Oh, I forgot what I called them. Yeah, the Censorites, which I watched actually not long ago. An interesting one. The Doctor lands on in an unusual area. It seems like it's a spaceship. Comes out of the TARDIS. 2 people appear dead. They weren't dead. They were asleep. They were asleep in a sleep state. Got them back. They were telling them a story that they were from Earth, traveling in the 27th century. So it's in the future. And they'd come across these creatures that seemed to take over the brain. They trapped the TARDIS on this ship by burning the lockout. Interesting concept. I thought to myself on that one, that's a bit weird, that. Isn't it a bit bad that you have a device that can travel through space and time, travel through vortexes and all of this sort of stuff, and all you have to do really is burn the lock and you're trapped in. I would have thought there'd have been some sort of like force shield or some sort of definite thing that would stop that, but it was the 28th century. Maybe they knew or had technology that could do that and bypass. It wasn't really explained very well. It is the first season of Doctor Who, after all. So I let certain things go by. He did an X-Files review, season 5, episode 12. Nice that he does some modern stuff. The X-Files, although some people would consider not modern, is modern TV from a certain aspect. And what was there, 11 seasons of that and a couple of films? So we are talking not Kojak and Magnum, are we? We're talking a show that I think we were in, the majority of us, when we watched it, were in our teens. So that's great. He did an Amazon package unboxing, which is great, of one of his favourite films of 2025. And he did a live with me, as always, but we also had a guest, Muckman. Brilliant. Absolutely marvellous. And it was great having Jamie on. His knowledge is far superior with some of the stuff that was coming out. I hope I gave an insight, my old opinion on something. So that was great. So Ian Hill, you haven't supported him. Christ knows why you haven't. Go and have a look, least. Thank you very much and salute, Ian. Then we move on to Mondo Chelovic Movies, who did just Patreon stuff this week. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just there's nothing for me to watch. being hacked means that I'm very cautious on what I do as a monthly payment to someone, and I don't believe really for the content I watch on YouTube that I'm paying for someone to do something. It's just my opinion. It's nothing to do with his channel. There are no end of people that say like, subscribe, join, and if you can, join my Patreon and you'll get something earlier. I'm not into all of that. Like I say, I'm intrigued on his life, but not enough on anybody's life to do something like that. But each to their own. And I'll tell you what, he's got such a marvelous channel, all mostly horror related, but it's not just that. I mean, it's his whole physical media life and his history of going to the cinema and everything around it while he was watching. Brilliant channel, you know, absolutely fantastic. Then you got Through the Lens, and Through the Lens did what I thought he would do. He did a best of 2025. He did a short on something called Marty Supreme. I haven't seen that film, so I'm intrigued to know what that's like. I watched a bit of it, but it's one of those things where I saw it there, hit the short, then I was talked away, and I've got to go back to it. So I need to do that. Fantastic channel, by the way, Through the Lens, if you haven't thought about it. Lots and lots of shorts, lots of intriguing views on a film that you might not actually naturally think of, like the music and how it worked in this particular scene and things like that. Interesting. Did you see that? He did a Let's Go Live, and he did his top 5 best movies of 2025 and a top 50 worst movies of 2025. And I was surprised at some of what people consider to be the best of 2025 was so low down in the worst of 2025. But as he said, it's people's opinions. It's people what people thought of it. Not everybody is going to like, I don't know, something that's got jazz music in it or whatever, and it might pull them away from the story that's going on in the film. So quite rightly would it be placed into a worse. But it was just a surprise, you know, to see certain ones of these so low down. And fair play to him, because it's an opinion, not something to disagree with. It's his, and you want to know what his opinion is. That's how it works. So brilliant. Go and watch that. That's fantastic. Muckman-Movies, who I talked about earlier, Jamie, fantastic guy, did a December 25 movie pickups. And he does his all in one video. I do mine at the end of the blogs and all that sort of stuff. And I've been meaning to possibly do that. And it's something I might do. I don't know. Nobody's ever turned around and said, do you know what, Del, I'd love it if you could get one of your crates from down there. Just pull it up and say, there you are. That's what I've got, right? Nobody's ever asked. So I haven't done it. And in the old days, I used to think, is that laughing at someone or showing how rich you are? Not at all. Not at all. It wouldn't be that if it was me. It's purely a catalogue, really. You know, best way of talking about that. And lastly, we've got Commode. Now, he does Commode on film, and he does Commode and Mayo's Take, which is more a film review channel, on holiday. So nothing to report there. And we move lastly to Gaming and Tech YouTube, which is basically my friends that are part of my Discord, part of Mainmeister's Discord, part of many Discords I'm part of, stuff that they've done, and many people that I've talked to, even if it's just by text in a Discord channel or whatever, and I know them well. And so top of that list is Down the Rabbit Hole, for no reason other than that's who I put at the top. He's in a holiday period at the moment. He would have gone and seen his sister, who, by the way, has got a channel, I think it's called The Footnotes. If you go over to Down the Rabbit Hole, I'm sure there's a link there, but his sister does this marvelous book review channel. Now, I don't do an awful lot of reading, but you don't need to do an awful lot of reading. It's, hey, have you considered reading this book? here's the footnotes to it. What a great idea. We don't do enough reading, all on Kindles and stuff. There are books out there. I'm a great fan of books. I've got paperback books back there. I don't read enough of them. I read more index and reference books. I've always got my movie one right here. I've shown it a million times, so I won't bother showing it again. And it's a great thing to do, to pick up something rather than, Google it. Google, my God. How many times do we go to AI and Google and all that sort of stuff? Books, great. Have a little reference book of music, a little reference book of films, a little reference book of TVs, all that sort of stuff around you. You know, lovely to have. So that's down the rabbit hole. It's on holiday. Robert's Retro Gaming, that I've already talked about, right? Got a fantastic channel. Canadian royalty, a big Atari player, but he's not a one-trick wonder. This is the thing. It's why I go there, because there is more stuff there than that. So right at the top, you've got Dwarf Fortress. That's a series on a game, and he's up to episode 20 on that. Minecraft Play, a game from yesteryear, still considered modern. Episode 175. Just something he puts on, decides to set record, play it, get an hour, put it out there. Marvellous. No-brainer. Take much. SNES Play. Plays some SNES stuff because he had a SNES. I had a SNES. That's why he asked me a question right the other day. He played Pinball Dreams. Now, my Pinball Dreams experience was on the Amiga. Didn't really play it on consoles. I did have that game, but remember I had that Magidisc system on my SNES. So I could just go in, read anything I wanted, put it onto a disc and take it back to Blockbusters. No brainer. So I had it. Did I play it much? Nah. I had the Amiga one. It was just greed, I suppose, from a certain point. What do you want that for when you got the Amiga version? You look at it like that. Commodore 64 played Hunter's Moon. Now, here we are talking quality. This is where I'm saying, yeah, maybe I could be hypercritical. Hunter's Moon, I think he loved it. Oh, he praised the sound, praised the graphics. I think he found it a difficult game. Getting your head around it as well, a little bit weird. But also an opportunity for Robert to praise a friend. Great. I think that's wonderful when you have cross play against people and say, hey, look, I'm playing this because I saw this on this. Why don't you go over there and have a look at that as well? No brainer. Such an afterthought sometimes that people don't do. But, you know, most of my friends do that. So it's nothing really to bring in. Atari 8-bit place. Here we go, look. Right, because you can tell he's an Atari player. Schreckenstein, Boogie Boogie 2, or Buggy Buggy 2, which is a race game, micro chess, and a sort of a board game called Capital. Those are the ones I watch. I think there's one other video that I haven't got round to watching yet, but because it came out late last night, I haven't actually got round to watching that one yet. So there is one other. So bear that in mind, that I'm reporting what I watched, and I watched those. Dwarf Fortress. I'll give you an impression of Dwarf Fortress. It can be mesmerizing to watch, but for me, I don't understand it very well. So if it's an hour long, I might watch 20 or so minutes of it and go, you've lost me now. I have no bloody idea. And Minecraft is easy. See what I mean? It's so easy to watch. So I need to do a bit more watching of Dwarf Fortress. I might go back, I think, a few episodes and see if I then understand more the 20th one. So there's something for me to do, isn't there? Brilliant. Fantastic. Go and subscribe. Steve's Gaming Part 2, another one that you should be subscribing to. Did a couple of videos. Look, he did a last video of 2025, so that was just before New Year's Day. A C64 game and chat, where he just wanted to talk a little bit about a game and chat a little bit about the future. Also to ask that question that I mentioned before, which I'll mention again. Can you think of a game that you'd like him to do a series on? I'd be interested as well in knowing if there's something like that somebody would like me to do. I'll definitely do that and consider it. But go over to Steve right now. He's the one who's asking that question and needs the answer. And he did a HomeSoft disc, which is an Atari HomeSoft disc, and he did discs 85 and 86, and they're fun to watch. And the reason for that is it's the unknown of them all. Is he going to love them? Is he going to hate them? Is he got a load of shit on it? Has he got a load of good stuff on it? What does he think of the actual games, even if they're what they would be considered AAA titles at the time? Not necessarily is he going to like that. There are a few quirks with Steve, in regards to he hates a timer limit. He hates this shoot 'em up, this particular angle on how shoot 'em up is done, or whatever, platform game, whatever, sick of those type of games, whatever. He's a programmer. He sees games in a different way. So it's good that you go and have a little look at his channel. Colin Jones, who I mentioned earlier, my friend Colin Jones, he did a Lego Game Boy build live stream recording. So he did a live stream. It's on the Game Boy, I think it was, if I remember rightly from memory. And it was very interesting. Like I say, he does his blog every couple of weeks, which is why you don't get a blog every week. And what he does is he compounds it. And that's a good way to do things. Mine's a diary, right? It's not, I call it a Vblog or a blog because it is in a way, but it's a diary. That's what mine is. Diary with some interaction, right? That's what mine is. 20th Century Gaming did a live stream between Christmas and New Year. Wished everybody a good time. Did some requests and say, hey, anything you'd like me to play, see, whatever. Show off his new clothes, his t-shirts and jumpers that he got for Christmas. All very fun. Great. And so much positive buzz, wishing everybody a happy new year and that. There's so much positivity that was in there. And Mainmeister. I'd always do him a little bit last, but that's because most people turn to the end. See how I get at it, right? People will get and see the end. He did a couple. He did a live stream on the Amiga, Friday Waffle, which was on a Thursday. Go figure. And Terminator 2D No Fate review. A little bit later, I've already seen all the videos I needed to see on that particular game. He goes into a little bit more, though, than others would do, which is the reason he played it. Right, the reason he got it, and his thoughts on the game industry as a whole when you're of a certain age, which I agreed with and disagreed with, but I've got my own mind on things like that. I always look at it that my story is ever evolving, and that nostalgia therefore goes back, and certain stuff that you would consider modern are now old, and they were my story. So I consider certain stuff now quite something that I want to do a retrospective on, and others would say I had no nostalgia in that particular aspect of their lives, and that's why you have to agree and disagree on a number of things. But I tell you what, it's such an interesting watch that you can't ignore someone who's done YouTube content now for 13, 14 years that doesn't have a different eye or view on things. And it may not match yours, but remember, this is a person with experience and knowledge. This is a person that looks at something and goes, I don't look at life like that. I look at it like this. So here's my review on it. And that's, I think, why we're here, right? Do I agree with it? Do I disagree with it? And I'm going to mention Rocket Bunny again, because he mentioned a game called Bellwright, and I looked at it last night, not as a game, on YouTube, to find out whether I'm going to like it. And I tell you what, I am astounded on why I haven't known anything about this game. I really am interested in it now, and I just wish I could afford it. But I will look at my finances. We've just been paid. It's now going back to work the next day. Can I do that? But I've just bought myself bits for the PC, and there's food to get, all sorts of stuff, and I have to do my part, and rent and all that sort of stuff come into play. So who knows? Who knows? And with that, it come to an end. All it says for me now is to say Happy New Year to everybody. Hope I've offended no one. Hope you've enjoyed listening to my waffle, as Mainmeister would have said, all those years of him entertaining us. It is a diary. It is my thoughts on today, and my thoughts on the future. How this is recorded, I don't know on my new PC. There might be some stuttering. There might be some voice issues. It's going to be difficult for me to know without reviewing it all, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do that without and get it out there. So I'm just going to wish everybody the best. I hope you've enjoyed this. More blogs to come, but more importantly, more content to come. I thank everybody for all the well wishes, family, friends, all of you. You're all a big part of my life. I don't know how long I'm going to be on this planet for. My health changes, and there's a few scary things that are going to be happening in January for me, that maybe I'll talk about in the future. You won't have not noticed changes physically, and I keep them to myself at the moment because everything is up in the air, and certain stuff I will know and I will come out with in time. That's all I can say on that. It will come out in time. And with that, salute. Have a brilliant 2026. Whatever's left of your weekend and your holiday. And there's certain people that have worked through this and are on their holiday next week. For that, I say, enjoy and see you next time. Bye-bye.